as of everything, represented and back in, that way it can reflect back, because we keep like every time, so it's not through. And it's just like.
All right.
yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and bring that on? It's 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call to order the City Council Business Meeting of June 25th, 2024. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we get a roll call, please? Here.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Here. Keith? Present. Miller? Ronnie?
Yes.
Stephen?
Here.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Conley and a second by Councilmember Daniels. And it's just a reminder to use our out loud voices so that folks can hear us in the audience and online. Is there any discussion on anything on the agenda? Seeing none, let's go ahead and get a vote.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
All right, I will entertain a motion on warrants payable so that we can then talk about it.
I will make a motion to approve warrants payable in the amount of $178,760.67.
I will second.
Have a motion by Keys, a second by Ronning. Would one of you like to speak to why we are doing warrants payable on an out-of-cycle schedule, please?
Yes. And I honestly didn't even know it was out of cycle.
Oh.
So it is, it's every every other week.
Yeah.
But this is the end of our fiscal year almost, and we do have one more set of warrants payable coming, that could be, included in that June 30th deadline of our fiscal year because of the accrual method of accounting. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
there'll be some.
It'll be in
July.
It'll be in
Okay.
July, but it will be in the current budget. So three, out of that 178,000, the three major things made up the bulk of that. One was almost 50,000 for water sewer replacement bond payment. That was 50,000, 22,000 for the stormwater bond, and then 67,000 for Great West Engineering for a variety of projects, mostly stormwater phase 2 and 3 in the amount of 39,000, and the downtown master plan for 11,000. So that is.
I thought the downtown master plan was covered through a grant.
It is.
We still, it's passed through, we still have to pay for it.
Okay.
Wow.
That's what I just, sorry. It's a grant, but the city still has to write the check.
Okay.
Thank you. Excellent.
Do you have, you don't have your hearing aid in.
Yeah, well, I'm pretending I'm somebody in the back corner who can't hear.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments regarding warrants payable? All right, hearing none. Let me get a vote, please.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Keith?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Under mayor's business, the first thing we have up is a reappointment of a library board member. I have a letter in support from Jody to reapprove Amy Sweet. I would like council's blessing in doing that. If somebody would like to make a motion to support the mayor's decision.
I make a motion to support the mayor's decision to reappoint Amy Sweet.
I second.
All right, a motion by Councilmember Tupin, a second by Councilmember Ronning to approve the mayor's decision of Amy Sweet. Any conversation at the table?
I think she's been serving in that position as an appointee, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
this is a reappointment.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, okay.
All right. Library Director Jody, would you like to add anything or comment or?
No, just to explain the reason it's been a short turnaround is Amy was initially appointed last year to fill an open slot. We had someone who could not fill their complete 5-year term. So in order to keep the board moving so that only one person is having to be replaced at a time, she ended out that term and is now being reappointed to her first official 5-year term on the board.
So it's very similar if we reappoint somebody, that you complete the position, but at the first available time, you fill it in properly.
Right.
Any other discussion at the table? Roll call vote, please.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Keith?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
All right. Mayor's reports. The list is not getting shorter. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. We're getting, some of them getting shorter is in sight. We actually had a really good meeting on the Rocky Fork property, this week. And I know this is a timeframe we've talked about before, but I feel fairly confident in saying that we're looking toward having a closing within 8 weeks. There's like 4 dependencies that we have in process right now. They are all being worked in parallel and being contacted weekly. The goal is to have that closing and actually get the demolition of the project done this year as well. So there's some homework that still needs to happen as far as like our bid process to find out what we need to do on that. But that happened this week. While we're talking about planning stuff, one of the surprises in the list not getting shorter as we were meeting with the various agencies is we found out that we have 800 plus pages of permits dating back to 2022 related to the flood. You may recall a conversation that came up when we were talking about an abandonment, and it was raised that the riprap that was down there at 13th is temporary in nature and is supposed to be done and closed out. So that caused a little bit of digging. And so our planner is going through, so far they have 800 pages of things that need attention. The good news is that we have confirmed that we do have a grant to help pay for getting those all closed out. I'm sorry, I don't have what the number of that is. Anecdotally, the city is the applicant in about 40% of those, and the other 60% are private. And sometimes the closing out is as simple as they need to sign off on the work and get it done. Hopefully we'll have more detail, but the planners have been working on that for a week or two now and trying to figure out the shape of the problem before we throw anybody off a cliff.
The planners from Great West?
No, the planners from WWC. So this is Jeremy Fadness, Greg, and Sean. So it's our team there that's doing that. And by the way, they've been doing absolutely fantastic on the Rocky Fork processes as well. Comments or questions on that? All right. As far as execution on things, you may have noticed if you come into town from any of the 4 directions, you will see a big sign that says fireworks are not permitted within city limits. The original first draft was fireworks are not allowed within the city of Red Lodge, but we decided, since it was something council was still discussing pursuing in various different ways, we just go with fireworks are not allowed in city limits, and if council chooses to change or give it to the voters and change, we have signs that can be sold to some other municipality and some of that value recouped.
Is that
So-
all 4 entrances?
It is all 4 entrances. In coming down the hill, let me rephrase it. The one coming down Brewery Hill, you're well into the city. It's basically on the noise ordinance enforced sign coming in. Coming in from the north, it's on the sign that has the wayfinding sign that points to the recycling. Coming in from the west, it's on the noise enforcement sign, and also coming from the south, it's on the noise enforcement sign. I'll just publicly thank our Public Works Director who was able to turn that around and make it happen and execute as he does on so many things. So, like I said, that was my job, is to make sure that we're doing what we have to enforce that the ordinances that you have in place. Along that line, there was a letter that was sent out, and Brian, who is serving as kind of our front desk planner, we're co-sharing that position now. So basically, if it's signs, building permits, all of that, it's coming in through the planning at City of Red Lodge as Brian is front-ending that. He has gone around and talked to all of the businesses that have signs that flappy in nature, that do not, match our zoning. You're not allowed to have like the little inflatable things, and we have all,
How
we-
about blinking signs?
pardon?
Blinking?
Those are included on the list. So there was several things that are outside of code. He went around and talked to people and, printed up a very nice letter that I signed off and approved on. In fact, I signed off hard copies of all those, and they are being delivered to all the businesses. And I believe the day they are all to be down is July 1st. So you'll see that come down before the 4th of July as well.
Great.
Happy signs, got it.
Flappy signs.
Are those
I-
like open signs that, open flags and stuff like that?
Yeah,
or
like-
what?
The
What?
stuff
the
that's
flag?
against our zoning code.
Well, I know, but,
The flag, the long, tall flag.
really? We can't do those either? Oh my God. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
I went with flappy because that's the word I can remember. I apologize. I should have brought a copy of that letter.
I know.
A
So,
copy
so
of that
like
letter with me.
if you have the rental signs out, or I have an ice cream sign, the vertical ones that flap.
Does it
says we
flap?
have
If
it-
if you haven't been talked to and received a letter yet, it
Well,
must not be in violation.
I don't have them out this
Oh.
year. I had them out last year.
But the open signs, like
Yeah.
I've seen those.
Yeah, the
I just
open.
saw it, yeah.
Yeah.
Loud voices. No, it's not, you're not in trouble for speaking, you're in trouble for speaking quietly.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, there's a
that
bagel
is, if there's a need, I'm sorry?
Okay, so like the bagel sign.
At the old annex, there's a.
Yeah,
bagel
I
flag
think
sign.
that's one of those that was deemed outside of our zoning regulations.
Okay.
The short version is, we're enforcing our sign ordinances
I got it.
from zoning.
Can we change those?
All right, let's,
Let's bring up signs again.
let's switch to happy things.
Uh-oh, there's nothing.
July 9th through 11th, from 8 o'clock until, let me start with the lead and then go down.
Yeah.
The Red Lodge driver license mobile unit will be in town July 9th, 10th, and 11th, from 8 a.m. until noon and 1 o'clock until 4. If you have any questions, folks can call 406-444-3933. But what we'll do is we'll also post that information online.
What does it do?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, this is your comment.
This
your
is,
report.
basically they show up and accommodate all the driver's license stuff without having to get appointments weeks and months
Oh.
out. They come down and do everything driver's license related.
Can people be walk-ins?
Mhm.
They can be walk-ins on all those days.
Wow.
Which dates were they, July 9th, what?
9th, 10th, and 11th. And so that is one of those things that I would love to, please, feel free to follow up and let's make sure we get that information, in the paper in advance so that people have time to do that. But this was the meeting that allowed that.
Will it be parked at the, county,
At the Civic
or
Center.
the civic center?
Sorry, thank you. Good information. Civic Center, 9th through 11th, 8 to noon, 1 to 4. Apparently he likes to eat lunch or something.
Yeah.
City Hall will be closed on Thursday and Friday of next week. That's July 4th and 5th. Okay, so plan that. And then the other thing, kind of in line with that, which I'd also, like to work with, is just a reminder as we start, and Lonnie, if you'd please correct me if I'm wrong, but as we move into July, a reminder that you're gonna see a change in your city utility bills.
August,
It's not gonna happen until August?
well, the first bill, because
Because it's
It,
backdated.
it's post-paid? Okay, so sometime in July, I would like to get that reminder out to folks, just so that they're reminded, and that was one of the things we said we would do up front, is we would cover that. All right, budget. We are still, progress is being made on the budget. I am not where I would like to be. The short answer is, I am really looking forward to next year's budget season, because it's going to be an absolute breeze after everything's put together this year. This year, there's a lot of battles and technology involved. I'll thank in advance, Jody for showing up and doing hers. We've been talking about, Jody has been working from hand sketch. Here's what I think it should look like and how we had done. And then, I'm still curious to see if she was able to incorporate, a PowerPoint presentation I sent to her. She's not in trouble if she was not by any means, but I have a very, very high level of confidence in Jody's ability to explain and defend the budget. So I asked her if she would be the first one into that. And then we will have a budget presentation, basically every council meeting between now and when we're done. We may have to do some doubling up. Next time is going to be Public Works. That'll be a big one. And then the following one after that is going to be Police Department. So that's just kind of some headlines of progress being made there. Unfortunately, I don't yet have information available to share. Historically, we've had some other out-of-cycle public meetings. I look forward to doing that, as well as to having those presentations online, even as they still evolve. But it's not the format that changes, it's just the numbers and the inputs as questions come up. I think that's everything. Let me rephrase that. I know that's everything I'm remembering at the moment. Is there anything else that council had that they would like an update on? All right.
How about airport?
Airport is still out there. However, I will be honest, I have put it as secondary just to budget just from a critical, and that doesn't mean it's not being done. It just means we were hitting critical timeline on budgets. I am teaching this week. I have not taken other teaching engagements to pay the bills until after budget is done and airport. So like I said, there's still some things out there, and I'm back to, I can give the full 80 hours a week to getting that stuff done, starting, well, after the 4th of July.
Aren't you glad we gave you more time?
Pardon?
Aren't you glad we gave you more time to get the airport done?
Oh, yeah.
What would be changed?
The only thing on the airport that I would add is they are looking at doing an event on the 1st of September, similar to what they did last year. There is still some, we're still looking into how to do the insurance. It's going to be a little bit arrangement different than what it was last year. We don't know what that picture looks like. And on that note, I will add, meeting events have been, we've seen a really interesting phenomena in that we have like 10 times as many land use permits as we've ever seen before that have come in. Most of them are small land use permits, like we want to have the gazebo for a wedding or a this and that. Brian in the front office have worked on, I think you guys had that today. Did you have that in that meeting to look at? So we're going to look at simplifying that process significantly. But something else that has happened in a really odd twist is that the big events have not been turning in permits. And so what has happened is, particularly there were several of them that in the past were kind of a combination event for ski joring, Renaissance Fair, 4th of July. And as everything else is going on, it's like, do we have an event permit for this? And so we have been working around and finalizing and putting permits. So a lot of times we've included those in the council packets and stuff, just kind of for the information everybody have out there. We haven't done that this year for the big ones that people care about, because we haven't had them until like, we're getting them wrapped up still, like we're still working on closing the 4th of July for the Civic Center on the parade route to make sure all the I's are crossed, and I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Is that the right order?
I'm not proud of it.
I had troubles during that whole campaign thing where it's shake the hands, kiss the babies. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So anyway, we're trying to get those done. I apologize that we have not been able to get those out to the public in advance. And it's just kind of weird that with all the other stuff going on, it was like, 4th of July, have we seen a permit for this? It's Renaissance Fair. Have we seen a permit for this? And so I appreciate those parties as we've reached out to wrap those up quickly to do so, but it's been in some pretty quick timeframes and turnarounds that have not allowed us to put those in the packets for the large events. So we will work on that. Anything else? All right. Hearing none, at this time what we'll do is we will open the agenda for public comment. The way this is set up is that, this is basically, you know what? I am going to, no, we'll still do it. I'm gonna open for public comment, so this will be a 3-minute to talk about anything that's on the agenda. Having said that, I will exercise, chair prerogative to open the floor, for public comment on individual action items too, because a lot of times that's when people want to make their comments. So we'll start initially with just a public comment on anything that's on the agenda. If you would just step up, be nice, state your name loudly so everybody can hear, and then speak. You're welcome to do so. Anybody in the room? All right.
I'm B.R. Walker with Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary. I live on Broadway Avenue. And I would just like to say that we are on the agenda this evening for a land swap that will benefit the city, but it will also benefit us. And it will serve as a permanent agreement between the sanctuary and the city and allow us all to move forward in a great way. So thank you for all the time you've put on it, and some of you have put more than a year. So thank you so much.
Thank you, BR. All right, anyone else in the room? Anyone online, if you could either turn on your camera so that we know you're there or come off mute. Maybe I'll see the mute button. Seeing none, going twice. Going 3 times, we'll close that part of the public comment. All right. The first thing we have, and I put this in action items just because it's in the business meeting part of it. Just to be clear, we are not going to be taking any action on this tonight. As such, there are presentations that will be presented that are not available to council or to the public just yet, but they will be available online following this meeting, and they will certainly be available to the public for review before we make any decisions and actions on that. I kind of already threw in my update on the budget and what progress is being made and what progress still needs to be made. But with that, I would like to turn the time over to Jody Moore and have her share her screen and give her presentation.
I feel badly that I can't see everybody, so maybe I'll move over to the podium.
You may move wherever you would like.
Do we have a copy of her updated
We do.
budget? Or just-
We do not have a copy of her updated budget, I
Okay.
apologize. Yeah, let's just go with no.
Okay.
And really tonight, what I'm presenting you is more of an overview, than specific budget items.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be okay. I would try to answer any specific questions you had, Jody.
Okay.
We just have had a couple of late changes, as far as wages go, and even, some today potential changes as far as services go. So I feel like it's still a little bit in flux. But anyways, thank you for having me here. My name is Jody Moore. I'm the library director of the Red Lodge Carnegie Library. That's a position I have held since January of 2006, which is a bit of a long time compared to some of my other colleagues here. But to my predecessors at the library, who just did 40-year terms, 2 in a row, I am not even halfway done working at the library. So, because you may or may not be familiar with what the library does, you guys don't see me here often, I wanted to just start by giving a little snapshot of what it is we do at the library. So we're open 34 hours a week. You can see our hours on the screen this last year. And I created that FY24 asterisk because I can't tell you FY24 yet. It's not over yet. But I wanted to give you more up-to-date information than FY23. So this is data from June 1st of 2023 to May 31st of 2024. We were open 257 days during that year. We had 11,939 visits to the library during that time, which is an average of 46 and a half a day. In practice, we are busier in the summer, we are busier on days we have programs, we have some days where we maybe only have 25 people come in, and then we have days where there's 90 people in the library. Our service area population is 5,425, and you may be thinking to yourself, no, it's not. This city only has 2,500 residents, but the Red Lodge Carnegie Library serves the entire county of Carbon County. We are one of 3 libraries in the county. There's also a public library in Joliet and in Bridger. And through an interlocal agreement with Carbon County, we receive county funds in order to provide equal service to non-city residents. We have 2,663 active card holders, and I always want to asterisk that by saying, off the top of my head, I can think of 2 families that use the library at least once a week with 6 members in the family, but they have 1 card. So it's not a direct correlation of how many people are using the library. In addition, if you attend library programs or use our Wi-Fi or come into print, you don't need to have a library card to utilize those services. We do try to keep that number updated. We get rid of patrons who haven't used their cards in a length of time, and I would say, I think I checked the number, of those folks, more than 1,500 of those active card holders have used their library card within the last 2 years.
I'm just gonna add, they don't get rid of those patrons, they just take your card away, because I'm still here.
I like getting rid of it.
But my card is not.
And it's so easy to get it updated and renewed. You just have to give us a call or stop in. In the last year, we issued 264 new cards. We have certainly seen an upswing along with the building department. We have noticed how many people are moving into our community. You can use your library card to check out physical materials. We have 19,600 in physical items in the library, books, audiobooks on CD, DVDs. You can check out digital materials. 90,000 items sounds like a ridiculous amount, but there just is so much out there. So that represents ebooks, downloadable audiobooks, digital magazines, and streaming films that you can get with your library card for free. And then you can also use your library card to use the library computers. So you can see there our circulation in the past year. What we observed is that our physical item circulation kind of stays like this over time, has decreased a little, but our digital item circulation just goes up and up and up, which means our total circulation numbers actually do go up over time. If you average it out by that service area population, it's 4.6 items circulated per capita. Of course, plenty of people don't check anything out, and then there's always a few people who probably check out 1,000 of those items over the course of the year because they're avid users. So I did a little return on investment, which is to say that for the $11,000 of taxpayer money that we put into our physical and digital materials last year, if you look at that circulation and you use just really rough estimates like $10 for a book or $5 for an ebook, it comes out to about a return of $430,000 in terms of how those items are being used. So it's something the library is very good at, is taking a small amount of money and turning it into more. This is a further look at some of the work we do. You can see the computer usage, printing, and Wi-Fi. Computer usage has just shrunk from pre-COVID. More and more people have their own devices, but we still have lots of people, residents and visitors, who come in and use our Wi-Fi on the daily. It is very hard to track the number of Wi-Fi users, but we can estimate that it's over 12,000 over the course of a year. One thing that is still heavily utilized at the library is the printer. So printing, copying, and also scanning. People are very happy for the library to provide that service. And then a service we added during COVID was hotspots that you can check out. And so if you don't have access to the internet at home for various reasons, if you are going to be traveling, if you have a data plan and you've reached your limit, you can come to the library and check out a hotspot and take the internet with you, which is pretty cool. On the right, you can see our programs and attendance for all kinds of stuff. So Storytime is probably one of the most important programs that a public library provides its community. We had 38 sessions last year with 613 in attendance. That's not 613 individual people. Of course, we don't have that many. It's a lot of repeat attendees, but that's the total number that includes the children as well as their caregivers. And then programs for kids, adults. We work with the state library to provide a series of virtual programs for adults, which aren't a huge hit, but allow us to offer access to programs for people who are unable to physically come to the library. You can see a lot of the work we do is outreach. We go and visit 2 preschools in town, and then we do a lot of programs at the schools and having schools come to the library. Like Spence's school came and visited the library on a library field trip this year and had some lunch and had some really interesting questions for me about how doors are made. It was unexpected. And then a fun thing we did this past year, we were able to get over 500 pairs of solar eclipse glasses for free through a partnership we do with a program called StarNet, and give those out to the community for both the eclipse in the fall and then the partial eclipse that we observed in the spring. So in total, in the last year, 184 programs with 3,456 attendants. Some of the creative ways we get books out to children, which is so important, is through the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Program. Children under the age of 5 can register for free, while their parents typically are registering them. And they receive a book a month until they turn 5 years old that they get to keep. We currently have 201 active kids in that program. They are graduates as soon as they turn 5. And since we started that in August 2017, we've had 230 graduates from that program. This year, we helped support the launching of Books for Kids with Beartooth Books, and that provides a book of their choosing to every Red Lodge K through 12 student in their birthday month for free. We deliver bags of books, handcrafted for children that attend the Mountain Bluebells Child Care Center. And during the warm weather months, we have a story walk, which is a book displayed on realtor signs. It's up at Field School Park. It just went up last week and is out for the summer. And so you can walk around in nature and read the book sign to sign. You read the pages and interact with it that way. We have a lot of partners that we work with on those programs, and I do want to give them credit. So Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary, they're going to be at story time tomorrow. We're going to have some fake poop, and it's going to be amazing. Tidbit Rise does art programs with us. Beartooth Ranger District just had Smokey Bear out at the library recently. Carbon County Arts Guild supports their programming. All Nations Garden Club, Elevation Science Institute, is that what they call themselves now? Museum of the Rockies comes out once a year to do programs. The Community Foundation helps support us through grants and other partnerships. Humanities Montana, State Library, Billings Library Foundation help make all of these possible. And then we provide programming for Red Lodge schools, other county schools, Mountain Bluebells, Little Explorers, and Beartooth Children's Center for early childhood, the Boys and Girls Club, the Beartooth Industries, and group homes. So we reach a wide variety of the community. It's one of my favorite things about working in a library is you really do serve all ages, all economic backgrounds, all levels of education, a really diverse population. So in looking at the budget, I try to think about what might be interesting to you. So I came up with what matters to our community. And these are the things I came up with and asking a couple of people, what matters to Red Lodge? So the library can't really do much to support outdoors and recreation, although we have a great view of the mountains through our windows. But I'd like to think we make a difference when it comes to culture and education and help promoting a safe, attractive community. We have one of the best historical buildings in town and a great cultural heritage. And I think our staff truly represents wonderful customer service. Here's some of the things broken out that the library offers for our community, and I'm not going to read through all of those. You guys can read it now or read through them when you revisit this slideshow. But I just think it's worth saying that the library, the existence of the library and library staff and the services we offer and the programs we provide I think they do make a difference in the lives of those who use it. And I never pretend that everyone in this community uses the library. We don't, just like hopefully we don't all need the police department and fire department all the time, or we may not all use the pool. But I think it's something that makes our community a better place. And we've shown over the years in surveys and, when we had our last mill levy vote for the county, and Friends of the Library membership, that even the people that don't use the library, amongst those people, a lot of them really value the presence of a library in their community. And I take very seriously my role as public servant, and the fact that my budget comes from taxpayer dollars is something that I think about and consider. We, in the library world, have changed a lot over the years. 10 years ago, it was, do we even need libraries? We have this thing called Google. And in the world of Kindle and Audible, do you need libraries? But the numbers show me that, yeah, we do still need those things in order for those to be available to everyone, and in order for people to have access to that information, regardless of income, or regardless of knowledge in how to use technology. I think that the library can be looked at as something that creates public value in the community and sort of serves as, we're not infrastructure, we're not roads, we're not water and sewer, but we are social infrastructure. We're helping to hold up the community, to make it a place where people want to live, and to educate and inspire people and increase their quality of life. One thing that I noticed in the library is, since we lost our Office of Public Assistance, there's a lot of things we can help people with in the library when they have to apply for unemployment, or they're looking for jobs, or trying to find how to access social services. And we also sort of serve as a different chamber of commerce. Sometimes they end up in the library because they can't find a chamber of commerce, or sometimes they're just already there, so they want to know where's a good place to eat in town. We also have seen a lot of new businesses kind of start up in the library, people on their laptops doing research about what they are ultimately going to do, and then down the road you see them go off on their own and do something cool. Okay, so there's my standing on a soapbox about the library. Let's move on to budgeting. So the Red Lodge Carnegie Library is a city department. It is a city building, and we are staffed by city employees, but our funding is a little more diverse. So we receive funding from a county library mill levy. Carbon County collects 6 mills that are distributed to the 3 libraries in the county. Currently, we receive 45.4% of that. That number will increase slightly starting in the next fiscal year. So the county library mill levy comprises about 66% of our total budget. The city general fund, about 27%, depending on what we receive. And state funding, about 2%. We also have revenue consisting of library collections, that's for printing or copying, at 10 cents a page for single-sided and 15 cents a page for double-sided, but that's a really small percentage of our total budget. Oh, look, Dave, I did it. Okay, I changed the font and I made it prettier.
Oh.
So, the other point I would like to make about the library's budget, because it is a bit of an oddball within the general fund, is to point out that it is comprehensive. That's the entire library operating budget that you see. So all personnel costs, all of our operating costs, which includes the maintenance of a city facility and the library grounds, which is different than the other departments, because City Hall, for example, is its own budget. And of the funding we receive, with the numbers I'm playing with here, $199,735 of the dollars are dedicated library funding. In other words, if there was no library in the city of Red Lodge, that money would not come to the city of Red Lodge. So our funding that we get from the county and the state and those collections all live within the city's general fund.
So basically, we get a library for 27% of the cost it really costs to run a library.
Yeah, and full disclosure, city residents are county residents, so you are paying that tax that goes to the county that comes back to us. but it does not, impact the city's property tax other than that small percentage. So what the graph on the left is showing you is where the funding comes from. The tall green spot is property tax from the county. And then the blue box is property tax from the city. We get $0 at this point in time from resort tax. According to our current resort tax regulations and codes, that could not change, but that's something that could change. Collections is such a small number, it's $1,000, so you can't even see that on this graph. The state funding is a little over $5,000, so it's pretty small. And then carryover happens because we always estimate what we are going to get from the county, from the state. And oftentimes it comes in higher because we are careful in our estimation to not go over. And so we end up with extra money that came in as undesignated revenue. Is that a fair way to say it, Lonnie? So it hadn't been budgeted for. If it's not budgeted for, you can't spend it. And so it kind of creates a nest egg going into the next budget year. And then on the right, you can see how the funding will be spent. About almost 3/4 of that pie is for wages and benefits. And then services, that includes everything from, your phone bill, your water bill, electric bill, to the trash getting picked up, but also things like the library's catalog, the cost we pay annually to have access to Overdrive /Libby/Montana Library to Go. That's included within that services piece of the pie. The darker green is capital. That, of course, varies greatly from year to year if you have a big capital project you're working on, or if you're just hopefully saving up for a future year. And then supplies, paper, toner, if we need to buy any equipment, that's in that little piece of pie. Any questions about these two here? Dave, did I capture them the way you pictured them?
I'm pleased. So, yeah, I'll just sit up and I'm pleased, and like I said, so this is kind of going the direction of what we want is, what do you provide as a department, what do we get?
Yeah.
Where does the money come from, so we can understand basically the 4 buckets of money we have: property tax, resort tax, fees, and then other, which is a lot of grants and stuff. And then if we look at any department, they basically, if you break it down into 4 buckets, they have salaries, operations, capital, what am I missing? Professional services. Purchase services is like when you outsource something, like currently our planning is a purchase service as opposed to salaries and wages.
A couple other notes before I move on from this slide, which is the library, again, is a little unique in that the structure of the library is set up in Montana Code Annotated, that there is a library board, and the library board has a little more power than just about any other board at the city, in that they have full legal authority to determine how the funding is spent. So at this table, decisions can be made about how much money the library is going to receive from the city property tax, or if you were going to apply resort tax at some future time, or capital funds to the library. That decision is made here. Once that decision is made, the library board has the full power to determine how that money is spent from that point. And then lots of our funding, as you can see, is dedicated library funding. So you can't be like, oh, we're going to use that to buy something for Mike over here. Can't do that. So taxes are not determined per capita, of course, but just to have a way of thinking about it, in this little pie and bar graph that you're looking at, that represents about $72,750 of city property tax, which would be the equivalent of about $29 per capita, if you did want to look at it that way, or about 6.6 city mills based on the valuation of the mill last year.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
How much money do you receive through grant funding? And donations.
Yeah, so I was gonna talk about that on a different slide. There is funding that the library has that is not reflected here at all, and that is confusing, but I thought it would be too complex to get into that tonight. So the library has, two funds at the city of Red Lodge that sit outside of the general fund. One is called a library cash reserve, and that's something that, allows us to put funds in that can then be used for future capital needs. And that money can't be touched unless at the discretion of the library board.
Okay.
Then we have a fund called the Library Special Fund. It's a 2220 fund, and that is donations, bequests, grants, et cetera. So, you know, each month, maybe we're putting in like $100 into that fund, but sometimes we might have a big amount of money going to that fund.
Mhm.
So it also sits outside of the general fund. If the library board determines they want to expend some of the library cash reserve fund, that's a conversation we have with Lonnie, and that gets pulled into the general fund. But that library special fund is kind of its own little animal. We spend the money out of that, it's spent out of that fund. In your, warrants payable, we had one, bill that was paid out of that library special fund tonight that, connects back to a town pump foundation, Keep Kids Reading grant that we got. So from year to year, grants are all over the place, right? We might have a lot, we might have none. In recent years, we'll see on an upcoming slide some of the grants that we've had. But that is a great question, and it is an important part of funding. But it doesn't live within this budget, so, yeah.
One other question, so books, subscriptions,
Mhm.
internet, all of that stuff,
Yep.
that would be within that green services category, correct?
Books are considered supplies.
So, yeah,
Services would be
Okay.
your power bill, your.
so the light blue supplies is where you're gonna see all the physical materials in the library.
Okay.
But in the light green services, that does include subscription services to that
Gotcha.
e-book.
Okay. That's what I was
It
curious
also
on. Yep.
includes the internet,
Okay.
and what was the other one you said?
No, that pretty much covers
Those
where
are
my
the
thought
ones you
was.
asked
Yep.
about. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, so they're in two slightly different places. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Okay, so this is just a closer look at that pie chart. So for our FY '25 request, it currently is sitting at 272,485. That number is not finalized because there's still some wage stuff that needs to be maybe solidified. And then we've got some services questions, as well. But you can see that absolutely the majority of our budget does go to personnel costs. And partially that's because all those grants and things we were talking about, there's supplies, services, and capital improvements that can be supplemented by our Friends of the Library. Their budget also lives outside of the city's budget, donations and grants. So it's easy to fill in some of those smaller pie pieces as needed, with some outside support, but it's very difficult to get that same support for personnel costs. And this portion does include, gross wages and benefits received by library staff. You can see we have 2.375 FTE if this budget is approved. That's the library director, me, at 40 hours a week, a librarian, at 30 hours a week, and then 2 library assistants, one at 15 hours and one at 10 hours per week. The supplies, that is not comprehensive, but that's just, those are some of the notable things that come out of supplies and some of the notable things that come out of services and capital improvements.
And if the mayor had done a better job of doing his part and prepared, what you'll see is that each of those little things corresponds with numbers in the budget. So Lonnie, you know off the top of your head, like our 4 main numbers for
The
each,
line item numbers?
yeah, the line
I've
item.
got- Yeah, you'll see.
1, 2, 4, 7, or the
So-
thousands.
So personnel is the 100.
Yep.
Supplies is the 200.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Services
the
is
objects,
the
sorry.
300, and capital improvements are the 900.
So as you look at your spreadsheet,
Mhm.
it corresponds to that in the
Yep.
background if you want to do further drill down.
Yeah. This slide just shows some of the notable decreases and increases when you compare to FY '24. So for supplies, you know, there's the one line item, 211, we just don't need that annually, so that lowers next year. Postage hopefully will decrease if we're able to add the courier service, which I'll talk about on the next, or on the right. Equipment, we don't have any major needs anticipated, and we have some funding remaining in ARPA funds through some county, ARPA project grants that we received, that will be expensed in that fiscal year. And then there's, currently, it's on the table, it was being discussed today, Public Works may take over the mowing and snow removal of the library, which would save the library anywhere from $3,400 to $6,000 a year, depending on the, you know, the year, depending on the weeks of mowing and the days of shoveling.
So part of it was, as we were looking at their budgets, one of the things they have is professional services that they're outsourcing, which is something we have the ability to do in-house. Our Public Works Director said, we can do that. So we're still hammering out the nails, but that then gives us, if we're not paying somebody to do something that we can do in-house, then that saves us money.
Right.
And then the one that's up there, you'll notice on the right, I'll do a call out on it. We've got one individual at the library who's currently at 25 hours that they are requesting to move to 30 hours a week. So that's a small increase in the number of hours. The more significant increase is in the benefits that that position now qualifies for. And that's where I remind us that we're basically getting that for 27% of the cost of adding that.
What we're hoping to do is, you know, the library wants to make a commitment to having 2 professional positions on staff. The librarian began working with us this past fall, and 25 hours a week is what we could afford. And she was on board with that, but I did tell her at that time that we did have a hope over time to increase that. One day I'd love to increase that to a full-time 40-hour-a-week position, but we are just taking baby steps based on what we can reasonably afford. But an additional 5 hours a week would allow her to do some more programming, which to me is kind of the way, one of the ways the library can connect best with the community in a world where a lot of our patrons are using us online. So if you're using Montana Library to Go primarily, you don't need to come to the library, except that one time when you call me to be like, oh my gosh, I can't get in, can you fix this for me? And so we miss seeing those folks in the library, and a way to bring them back into the library is to have programs of interest for them. So that is in strategic planning goals, that's one of the goals that the library board has, is to put an emphasis on programming in-house as well as outreach in the community. Our services, we see a couple increases, you know, not huge, but our subscriptions, line 333, have been raised. Our building improvements have been up to reflect needed and ongoing maintenance. Some of the line items under services, you budget kind of in the middle, because in a good year, you won't spend that money. You won't have a plumbing or a heating emergency, but in a bad year, you'll need it. You kind of want to put the money right here in the hopes that you don't spend it all. But in case you spend up here, it's not as bad as if the budget had been down here. So you're sort of, it's you know, proactive, I guess, that you put that in the budget. And then our contract payments would increase by about $2,000 with the addition of the courier service. The courier service allows us to utilize, what's their name? Montana Air Cartage services cities all over the state. And for a fee, they are willing to cart around crates of books from library to library. So right now, if you came to the library and you had a unique book that you wanted that we did not have, I would request that through interlibrary loan, which would go through a system, and the library we request it from would put it in the mail and pay for it to be sent to us. Then we would provide it to you. Then when you were done with it, we'd send it back. And postage rates have really gone up, and that is becoming a more and more expensive service. and I would love to take advantage of the courier service. Like I said, it will be an addition of about $2,000 a year, but I think it should decrease our postage expenditures by about $500 and also give our community access to a much larger range of books. We could be borrowing books from all over the state. Okay, so in FY '25, we have, under capital improvement plans, a current request of $20,000. The goal of that funding would be to restore and rebuild downstairs in the original building, the kitchen/employee break room and storage room. The Friends of the Library will also dedicate funding towards this project, so $20,000 wouldn't cover it, but it would help us get there. Now, we also could use some funding as a match for the Carbon County Historical Rehabilitation Grant. We call that the CCHR grant for short, if we are successful in being awarded that project. So I applied with a letter of intent, and I was selected to officially apply. That application is due in July, and then we will find out if we receive that. If we do receive that money, it's to restore the facade of the original building, and replace the original roof. We would be receiving, if we got the full amount we're asking for, $93,000, and then we would be matching that, to bring the total project cost to $125,000. It would be matched with some in-kind staff time, and volunteer time, as well as some in-kind funding, to cover that cost. The work would be done, potentially in summer of 2025, which means it might not happen in FY '25 at all, but there's a little, it could happen. And then just so you can see on the right, our recent completed capital improvement projects from the last 5 years, we have done a lot, and most of this has been done with grants, a trust that the library received from the Bob Moran estate, Friends of the Library, and a few other supports. So we had ARPA funding that we applied for directly from the Department of Commerce in Humanities, Montana, from the state library, and through the county that supported a lot of these projects. The Friends of the Library paid for the furniture and fencing updates. The trust fund paid for the two hugest projects, which are the vestibule entry in FY '19 for $82,731, and the interior remodel in FY '22. There's another grant that I am trying to work us towards, so that will be eligible when it comes up, and that is some federal funding for digital equity. It's the DEA money, which is so funny. That acronym is already taken. It is very different meaning, but libraries are being seen as one of the entities that can help support digital equity in communities, and it is something that the federal government feels is worth investing in. So you have to get ready so that when the money comes available, you can say, hey, look, I've got a digital equity plan. Give me some of that money.
Jody,
Yes.
question, on those capital projects on the right,
Mm-hmm.
over the last few years, do
Mhm.
you know, has there been any resort tax that has played any role in those capital projects? I think,
No.
I'm seeing Lonnie shake no.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
No.
And for
It's
the
not
most
allowed.
part,
Is library
very-
specifically not allowed? Okay.
very little city operating, very little city taxpayer or county taxpayer dollars went into any of those. So the majority of them were grants, Friends of the Library, or that trust. Okay, so one of the other things Dave talked about is, sort of what does your department look like with decreasing money or level of money or increasing money. So just to say, if the investment the city makes the library decreases enough, we would potentially need to look at reducing staff hours, which would impact library hours and programs, and would really hobble us in terms of making progress on capital projects. As you can see from the last slide, we really do like to get capital work done, and we do take very seriously taking care of an old building. The addition is also now aging. It was built in the 1990s, and the workmanship was not as good in the 1990s as it was in the 1910s. So it also requires a fair amount of labor to keep it running. If the investment stays flat, this is kind of funny to say because last year the city actually treated us very generously by giving us 7 mills in a year when the mills went up. But let's say the total budget of the library had to decrease. We would try to maintain our status quo. We really work hard to do everything we can, even if we have just a little. But it's really challenging because personnel costs, supplies and service costs go up every year. So when your budget stays the same, you actually, you're in the red because all your costs went up. So if the full request was granted this year, we are hoping to see with that additional 5 hours a week, a slight increase in programs and an access to a wider variety of materials for patrons through the courier program. And we would like to continue forward progress on capital projects, even though as the library director, they are exhausting. To stay on top of. And then if over time the city were able to increase their investment in the library, I think you would see an increase to staff hours and library hours as well as programs, and we could consider adding new services and saving towards future capital improvements. One goal the library board has, which is hard to do when the budget is a struggle, is to put money away towards capital, to say, oh, every year we can put $10,000 away, and that way, when it's the next time to replace the roof, because they don't last forever, we have that money sitting in the bank and we don't have to struggle for it. So regardless of the money we receive, please know that the library will continue to be mindful of taxpayer investment and interest, be efficient and effective with our funding, be on the lookout for grants and other funding opportunities, be on top of facility and ground needs, continuously strive for improvement and embrace change. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. In 19 years of working at the City of Red Lodge, it's the first time that I have been invited to give a presentation to council, so I do appreciate that, even if it did come at the last minute.
Any failings that anybody feels in Jody's presentation, which I thought was wonderful, I will take full ownership for calling on her with such short notice, so thank you.
There is my name, my email address, and my phone number. I am always happy to answer questions, and give more information if needed. So please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Jody. That was really,
Thank you.
that was really helpful.
Oh, thanks. Oh, thank you.
All right.
And Dave did tell me that by going first, it means I have first dibs to city property taxes. So just keep that in mind.
Lonnie might arm wrestle you for it.
I did tell her by going first, I wouldn't hold the 10-minute stopwatch in hand, so. All right, are there any questions from the table, for Jody?
We'll get a copy of this presentation.
Yes, we will have a copy of this presentation. We may do some cleanup, but all of these presentations, the goal is we'll have them online. It was not made available in hard copy tonight because it didn't exist when the packet went out. So we've had a few things like that. So again, Jody, thank you very much.
I just have one quick question, Jody.
Yes,
I have the preliminary budget, and it
Yes.
probably has changed.
it has.
But on this one, the personnel, services go up from 175 to 193. Does
Yeah.
that incorporate the extra 5 hours, or will that be in addition to that?
It did incorporate
Okay.
it, but since that time, we have increased the COLA to 4%, and, my, children were added to insurance coverage, and so that number has jumped up to what you saw on the screen, 198,068.
198. Oh, sorry, I didn't
I
have
think
my
there was
glasses
also,
on.
was there
so I
another
couldn't see
change, Bonnie, that I'm forgetting? Those were.
It did not, the original request still included them doing the professional services for mowing and snow, which
Mhm,
has
right, that'll
not
go
gone
away.
away yet.
Right, it actually still hasn't.
That's
And it's still in
65,
there.
yeah, that's
Yep, it's still in
6,500.
there.
Okay.
And we did pay a bill.
Correct, and I anticipate, Jody, that line item, the 365, would go down to $2,000,
Okay.
if we are successful in making that transfer.
Okay.
Lonnie, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
No, this is awesome.
All right.
She's been through these, as many
Yeah.
as I have.
There was a reason we picked on Jody first.
Or
All right.
We signed off on a bill that had both snow shoveling and lawn mowing in one bill, so. Red line.
Well, yes, welcome to Red Lodge.
It is pretty funny that month, May, would be pretty normal, where you
Yeah.
do both. Yeah.
All right. If there is no further questions from the table on that,
I just want to clarify, when you were talking about the mills
Yes,
before, or the percentages,
yep,
so you said 27% of the budget comes from the city,
yes.
and that was the equivalent of,
750, I think. And that was kind of a number that's based on our current total. For example, if Public Works does take on the snow removal, that decreases our total by 4,000, and so that would decrease that by 4,000.
okay.
But I'll just say this, so the money we get from the city is always how we kind of, it tells us how we have to balance the budget, right?
Sure.
If you guys gave us, $80,000, we would find ways to spend it, right?
next.
If you gave us $60,000, we would be like, oh geez, what do we have to cut to balance this?
Right.
So it's, again, that is the piece that's at council discretion, to balance these current numbers with the other revenues that I have coming in. That's where the city amount landed.
Okay.
But again, if you wanted to grant the library more or less, that's my job and the library board's job to make that work.
Okay. And I just wanted to clarify that this 267,607, which has probably changed because this is old,
Okay?
that does include county funds as well.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Just
And-
wanted,
And
wanna make sure I
just
know.
to be clear, the lion's share of that you saw and where the money comes from property taxes, the lion's share of that goes through our budget, but it is
it's
designated from
yeah.
county taxes
Right.
and that it comes in.
That's what I wanted to.
And then the second part I wanted to say is, part of the spreadsheet we've done is, as we've all seen at the table at least, because we've been working with, seeing, the value of a mill go up and the number of mills we have go down and the impact that has for things that are mills. It is worth noting that while our current agreement with the fire department is actually a mills-based conversation, it's a rule of thumb guideline with the library. So we do not currently have a designated mill amount for the library. So one of the things that I've been working with on Lonnie and I've shared with Jody as well is we've looked at a 10-year history to kind of see what those numbers are. And we're looking at how do we kind of better forecast or predict
Cool.
How we do that in the future, because what has become evident over the last couple of years is that mills is a very bad mechanism to use to do that.
right.
So-
And just to clarify, the city does not tell the library how to spend their money.
Yep.
The library board does.
Right.
Yes.
We
Yep.
just decide how much we're going to contribute to that budget.
Right.
And I mean, it's not like Lonnie's trying to hide from you where that revenue
Right.
comes from. There is
No.
just no way on that Black Mountain form to
Right.
include that.
And I think in the bottom, like, I can do notes in there, and I think that's just where I'm gonna plug it in,
Mhm.
just so
Yep.
that it's on there somewhere stating, here's the amounts that are coming in.
Cool.
On the revenue side, to make everything on this side balance.
One of the challenges we have, and it's certainly the one I'm going to use as my excuse, is what is so time consuming is not just taking last year's numbers and saying, yep. It's taking it and breaking it down so that it's understandable and it makes sense and it allows us to shift it around based on the priorities. Councilmember Conley.
If 27% of the library budget, it comes from the general fund, was that the same as last year and the year before? How much was it last year that came from the general fund?
You know, it's probably been about that amount, but all of those numbers, so you may or may not be aware, like, county mill values have increased sharply over the last 3 years. This year we anticipate 180,000 from the county, and last year it was 155,000. So the city's investment can't go up at the same rate as the county's investment does,
So it
so those
should go down.
percentages really shift.
So does it go down? So if in fact you got 150 from one year,
Yeah.
and then the next year 180, that would mean that you would need less from the city.
If our budget stayed the same.
If your budget stayed the same.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's what I'm kind of trying to figure out, whether your budget for the city
Yeah.
from the general fund is higher than last year or lower than last year.
Last year, the city's contribution would have been higher relative to the county's contribution. Last year's budget is hard to look at though, because we put in a lot of money into the roof replacement. So there's about like $30,000 in there that's abnormal.
But came from other sources, not just the general.
Right.
Like the
Right.
library reserve.
Right.
So it's a little, I don't like comparing to last year because it's very, very
Odd.
apples to cucumbers, you know?
Well, it just looks like what you said, 72,750
Uh-huh.
is what would come out of our general fund for the next year. 72,750.
Right. I mean, again, that's
I just didn't know what we spent on you last year.
76,
That's what our.
thereabouts.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit down from last
Mhm.
year.
Yep.
Okay.
And it just varies. There's about 3 years, I think, we've been getting 7 mils. But again, the value of the mill last year went up from, 8,000 to 10,600. So it was a big jump up last year. But, if you dial back, again, I've been here for a long time, if you dial back 12 years, the city gave a much higher percentage of the total library budget.
Because the mill was worth a lot less and you got a lot less from property tax.
Well, the mills thing is actually only happened within the last, like, I want to say 3 years ago. It was like, how much do we figure out how to give them? It was kind of like a step for planning purposes.
Yeah.
And it's been in place for 3 years, and we're coming up with another mechanism, because that's not a good mechanism for planning
you.
purposes. Did that help answer the?
Yeah,
Okay.
the mills is really difficult.
It is very difficult, but traditionally, historically, what is true, Sandy, is that the amount of funding the library receives from the city from year to year changes. And historically speaking, it's based on,
What you get from property tax and
Yeah.
what you need.
yep,
And part of what we're doing actually is putting together long histories so that we can look and see what those trends are.
Yeah,
That's part of what's taking the work. And like I said, next year, it's gonna be a breeze, because we're gonna be changing one
because you
column.
already have, yeah.
Yeah, so, all right.
Will you be sharing that 10-year history with us?
I absolutely will. As soon as it's ready for public consumption, it'll be shared with you and all of the public, and I anticipate we should be able to do that by the next meeting. But don't throw rocks at me if not, but I hope so.
No problem.
All right. I know, I'm good. Any other questions? All right, thank you for that. In the interest of time, let's go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a planning board member appointment. I would like to take actually, let's keep it official. I will entertain a motion for it has to be a positive motion, so I will entertain a motion to make the appointment for the planning board.
I move to postpone it until the next meeting.
The planning board would not be happy, they're right in the middle of a lot of things.
So can I get an initial motion to approve it, and then we can, and then we can amend it, and then we have discussion?
What do you want then?
A motion to,
I'll make a motion to, approve a board member appointment for the planning board.
I second that.
all right, so I have a motion for the council to select an appointment for the planning board,
Okay, switch it back.
from Councilmember Tupin. Yeah, I got the right one.
You did it, yeah.
And Councilmember
Conley.
Conley for a second. Discussion, Councilmember Ronning.
We received correspondence from Councilperson Miller, addressed to the entire council, requesting that we vote a certain way on an action item, and we did not have time to put that in the packet or to make that public. And I feel that because of that, we need to postpone it until the next meeting so that, those comments can be made public to everyone.
And just to add a little bit of a clarification for that, the one that I was copied on was actually sent to 3 members. It was I forgot to count myself conversation, so that
Yeah,
created
it
an
happens.
electronic quorum. And so, again, that happened after the packets went out. And so I have reached out to Dan as kind of far the best way to handle it as well. And what we'd like to do is make that correspondence part of the public record before any action or decision is made. The secondary kind of confusing element that came up is I did receive 2 letters of interest by the stated deadline. We ran it 2 cycles. It was actually initially going to run in one. If you'll recall, there was an error in the printing, getting it to press. There was some technical issues, but it did run for 2 cycles. I had received 2 letters by the deadline. One was by John Gray, and one was by Dan Horman. Those were included in the packet. After the packet had already gone out, I received an additional letter from Tom Coley. However, it was not able to be included in the packet, but I said, go ahead and submit. I felt that to present this to the board, I wanted to give as much information, as much opportunity to do that. But I think the motion to postpone that decision, I have talked to the planning board, by the way, and made them aware and had those conversations, and they've indicated that they'll be okay. But I think the motion to postpone until all of that information can be available is not a bad one. That's my 2 cents.
Did we have a official motion though to postpone?
Oh,
She did
she-
it like before and then you stopped her.
And then I started, so we had a motion that was made by Tupin and seconded by Conley to do a board member appointment. Then you made a motion to postpone, but I don't have a second on that.
Second
Yeah.
Is that right? I had a motion from,
Sure. I'll move to postpone the appointment until the next council meeting.
I'll second that.
and a second from Councilmember Keys, just so we're official. Is there any discussion on the postponement additional?
As long as the planning board is fine, I don't think they have anything this week that's quasi-judicial in nature, but there may be, you may have a brand-new person sitting on the planning board for the first time, for the first quasi-judicial.
No pressure.
Nope, yeah.
Don't worry, it's quasi-judicial. It's not even like actual, so you're good.
Yeah, so they're gonna be thrown in, yeah, literally, to the world.
All right, other
You know,
discussion?
One night and show up the next day.
All right, hearing no other discussion, can I get a vote on the amendment to postpone?
Conley,
Yes.
Daniel? Steve?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 3656 for the White WS Land Exchange.
I move to approve resolution number 3656, whereas Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary provides a community-based destination.
No, there's the title, you don't have to read all the paragraphs. No.
Read the whole thing.
3656, City of Red Lodge approval of land exchange.
I would second that motion.
I have a motion from Councilmember Daniels, a second from Councilmember Conley. I would like to call out for council and also for the board that you will note that there is some yellow in the resolution as it was approved, and I would like to offer some explanation beyond that. So initially, there was a motion of intent to approve, which is also included in the packet. And in that time, it said that what we needed to do is that we needed to have, a broker opinion that stated basically that the city was coming out on the top end of that deal, not on the bottom end of that deal, and that was the requirement that was listed. When we got that information in, and I asked the city attorney to put it in, by the way, I should also add, at that point in time, I reached out to our then, planning person, who was Cody Markser at Great West at that point in time, and asked if there was a role for the planning board, and she indicated she did not see that there were no zoning issues involved. When I got the letter from our city attorney, it had that part, and he had highlighted it in yellow. He said, if you wish to send it to the planning board, leave that in there. If you wish to not send it to the planning board, then make a motion to amend and take the yellow sections out. I reached out to our planning board president. He indicated he did not see a role for the planning board, because it was not zoning issues, and he said, if council wants us to look at it, we will look at it, but that would be because of council direction that we would do so.
I would move to amend. I don't see a role for the planning board since there's no zoning that's going to be, changed.
It's a long amendment. Can you shorten it?
Hey. I would move to amend for the yellow being stricken from this.
I have a motion to strike the yellow from Councilmember Conley. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Councilmember Daniels. Any discussion?
I would just like to say that we've been talking about this for a long time, and, I'm really happy that we came to a resolution, I think. I mean, we haven't voted yet, but, happy that CR and YWS is getting what they need and want, and
And the
we are
city
having-
is too.
Yeah, we get,
Absolutely.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion to amend? Roll call on the motion to amend, please.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith?
yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Ruben?
Yes.
The motion to amend passes. We return to the original motion, don't get excited yet, we're not there. This is now a resolution on 9356, the amended resolution. Any further discussion from the board?
You're talking about 3656?
Yes, I'm dyslexic, I'm sorry. My mother joined a group, DAM, Mothers Against Dyslexia.
Wow.
All right, any comment from the table on the amended
Oh,
resolution?
my God.
No, it
No.
looks like a perfect
All right,
solution.
I would like to open public comment if there's any, comment from the public, on resolution number 3656. I'll go ahead and open that.
Victoria Porter, I live in Red Lodge. I'm on the board for Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary and have been on the board since 2020, just at the start of lockdown. And what I would like to say is, oh my God, I should have brought champagne. If this is going to pass tonight, I've been hearing about it since I've been on the board, and nothing was done until we had Mayor Dave in that seat, driving what needed to be done to make this happen. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from the floor? Any comments from online? Going twice? Going 3 times? Hearing none? I'll bring it back to the table. Last chance for conversation at the table. Hearing none, could I get a roll call vote on the amended 3656, please?
Conley?
Definitely yes.
Daniel? Yes. Keith?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Ruben?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Drinks for everyone. All right.
Buy some birthday bash, pass it out. We will open at 10 a.m. You may bring your champagne. You may come celebrate with Speedy, who will be cutting a ribbon on her yard.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, not exactly that, but she's gonna be on the yard. Right, bingo. Thank you.
All right. I will entertain a motion for resolution 3655 regarding the CDBG planning grant.
I move to approve resolution 3655, authorization to submit CDBG planning grant application.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Conley, a second from Councilmember Tupin. I would like to clarify that although the agenda says 3655, the resolution is 3645, which I presume is the correct number.
One that we got in our packet was 55.
Am I reading the wrong one?
I three,
Yeah.
It's
Four, five.
Oh,
No,
wait,
oh, that's the
I'm
other
out of,
one.
I'm out of order. Oh, 3645 was the original. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
3655.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to keep it straight. All right, so I have a motion and a second discussion.
I was gonna introduce this tonight, so I just wanted to give a quick overview. This is a resolution to authorize the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation to apply for, I can never say this, CDBG.
Yes.
grant, which is Community Development Block Grant, from the Montana Department of Commerce in conjunction with the City of Red Lodge. So the Community Foundation essentially needs a sponsor, if you will. So the money will come to us,
And then we pass
and then we
it.
pass it through. This grant will fund a housing study for eligible property as part of the Red Lodge growth policy, with the intention of seeking solutions to the supply of low-income and workforce housing. So this grant requires a match, which would be donated by the foundation.
So just to clarify, my understanding, the city's primary role is in that the foundation is not eligible to apply for grants directly. They need a formal sponsoring body, which we've done before and in the past. That is the extent of our role.
We have done this many times.
Any further discussion at the table? All right. Let's go ahead and call for roll call on the item, please.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the business portion of the meeting. As we move to council's opportunity, I don't mean to cut council short at all, but I would, I'd just like to call attention to the time, which is working, by the way, thank you.
Yes.
It is 7:35. If for some reason we extend beyond 8, it will require a motion to do so. But let's start with public health and safety. If you could give us your updates from your meeting today that you feel council as a whole needs to be brought in on.
Okay, the school resource officer, Red Lodge, proposed a 75-25 split, and we're just waiting for an official response. They do want that SRO, at the beginning of the school year, so there is some speed needed there. We discussed the draft resolution requiring the mayor to maintain a police staff of at least 7 officers 24/7. We felt it should also include the request that the mayor find the funding for the city share of the SRO, the school resource officer. Lots of changes proposed, so when the new draft is finished, it should go to Dennison and the mayor to look over. So we made some changes. We talked about the growth policy draft that had as an action item to create a plan for the disposal of deceased animals within the city limits through the Public Works Department. Whether or not this is something that should be in the growth policy is a question. The chief simply
No.
said that it depends on the urgency of removing the deceased animals as to what they do. I won't say what they did with that calf that drowned in the creek. Another action item in the draft said that they should develop a wildlife mitigation program with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to eliminate potentially dangerous interactions between humans and wildlife. And Red Lodge Police Department have had to deal with the issue, and they deal with it when they can. Other than that, there's not going to be, a whole program from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. They just work together. So that's for those turkeys that attack people. In our public health municipal code, there's a section dealing with overnight camping in public health and safety. We discussed occupied campers or RVs in the city right of way, perhaps allowing, a 14-day permit if the homeowner and adjacent property owners sign off on it, or, we know that parking's a real issue in the city of Red Lodge, so we're just looking into that. I was told at the planning board meeting that residential properties cannot have an RV on their property that's occupied. So I'm gonna talk to the planning board about that as well.
Now, that's in the zoning though, not in our ordinance,
That's in the
Correct.
zoning,
not the ordinance
but it
itself.
might, you know, conflict with what we're trying to do here.
Sure.
And I think that we'd probably prefer to have them on residential land rather than in the right of way. Also, Chief told us that, one of his officers put a sign up on the site that sells fireworks south of town with the city ordinance that fireworks are not permitted in the city of Red Lodge.
Thank you.
So-
I wanted to mention that during Mayor's comments too, because I stopped by and spoke with him. So in addition to the 4 signs that we have upcoming into town, it's posted there. He was very cordial, very friendly, and happy to be supportive of that to make sure that people knew.
And the
That
officer
they're not
took it
allowed.
upon himself to do that, so
Yeah.
that was really nice. So that's a quickie.
All right, do you have any items that you foresee are going to be ready for action next week that we should make note of at this time?
Well,
Not action. The resolution will be up for discussion.
Resolution for discussion? Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
because we want to be able to discuss it and then vote on it.
okay, thank you. Admin and Finance, Committee Chair Ronnie?
Well, we already handled a couple of the things, the CDBG planning grant, the budget, recycling center. Mike did a great budget for that, and we were given copies of that during admin and finance. We did give, that back to Public Works to do our annual review of. So Chris can probably talk to that later. The short-term resident, the ordinance and business registration, we're still working on, the cleanup and to make sure that we have that codified, because it currently is not codified, so. And then we will also be doing an annual review of that to council, probably closer to, I think it's September, we said, because we need, right now they're in the process of renewing all of the STRs. So we won't know for sure until probably August where we're at on the cap with the new, how many STRs don't renew versus, it's held steady. We'll just let you know that. Once we brought everybody into compliance, we were worried there for a couple months that we might get close to the cap, but it's held steady, just so you know that. It's plateaued, so we're fine so far.
Anything specific that you see for the next meeting as either a discussion or action that we should plan for?
No, not the next meeting. Probably not till August, September.
All right,
You're
thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for admin and finance?
Did you guys have any extra things to add?
No, just in terms of the budget, again, basically putting together a review, just so people know currently, though it's tight, the recycling center is on budget, so.
Yeah.
I think that's important to get out there to the public. And then in terms of the STR, cleanup and registration cleanup, because it's not just STR, but it's a larger scale cleanup. On a whole, it's been pretty well received by city staff, so looking forward to, getting that all put in place.
Do we have a new count for number of residences in Red Lodge? Because the cap is based on the number of.
Right, we
It'll
don't
be in
have,
the review.
yeah, that'll be in the review, we don't have that at this time because that does come from DES.
Yeah, when do you get that number? Is it not in September?
I think we gotta ask for it.
We have to ask for it? Okay, okay. Well, that's good.
And I do have one final thing to add, and that is we're gonna miss Chelsea
Yes,
on the admin committee.
we are.
a lot.
And we're
Yes.
gonna really appreciate her on
I know.
And I'm still gonna go to both.
Thank you for staying involved in seeing that to the end.
Yep.
That's huge help.
Yes.
All
Happy
right,
to do it.
there's nothing else. Land use and planning, council or committee chair Conley.
Yeah, we did, read over the, resolution 3656 the approval of the YWS land exchange, and everyone was, real pleased with it, and, happy that you took care of it, Mr. Mayor. We were talking about the camping ordinance again. We currently have a 14-day limit on privately owned commercial lots, and we are going to change that resolution for city council to look at, saying that I'm trying to remember I don't have the terminology that we decided on, but basically that if an employer, requests that someone staying in an RV on privately owned commercial lots can do 30 days. We're going to make an exception to the ordinance to allow temporary housing for seasonal employees, but it does require the employer obtaining a 30-day permit for their employee. The permit is renewable in 30-day increments for up to 4 months, and the Red Lodge Police Department would issue such permits. The other thing we changed from the original ordinance is the original ordinance had penalties in there, dollar amounts, and we removed those because those could be set by resolution. So one of the changes was penalties for noncompliance are to be set by the city council through resolution. So those are but we did discuss again allowing friends of property owners or tenants to park their RV and occupy them on the city right-of-way. And we discussed the parking issue because everybody thinks that spot in front of their house is theirs to park with, and we already have a lot of complaints. The chief says they get a ton of parking complaints because people assume that that's theirs, and so if you were to park an RV in front of a 25-foot lot, one of those half lots in town, the RV would take it all up, and generally, people don't have their own off-street parking. So, for instance, I park in front of my house, and if my neighbor had a 30-foot RV in front of their house, and then they would have to park in front of my house, and then I'd have to park in front of the neighbor's house. So, this is a discussion the city council needs to have at length before we go too far on parking on residential right-of-ways.
Or adjacent, you mean?
Mm-hmm. We were saying adjacent to the property owner or tenant, but it's a trickle-down thing. Like I said, what are you going to say, that it's only a 10-foot trailer, a 20-foot trailer, a 40-foot trailer? If it's a fifth wheel, then there's also a 30-foot truck that goes with it. So it might be a sticky wicket and might not be the best for, it would be nice for the property owners to be able to say, you know, my sister's coming with her family and they have an RV, they're completely done. And yes, no generators, you know, we'll drape electrical line over, but we'll put a rug over it so nobody trips on the sidewalk. But, and that would be nice to do, but it would be nicer if they had.
Do you want to
some
have the
backyard.
Conversation now, or do you want to schedule it for the next meeting?
I think everybody should think about it. I'd like to put that in the forefront.
Okay.
Thinking about that, because there's a lot of things that go with that.
I would add that on your, the 14-day limit commercial zone, you used the term resolution. I think you meant ordinance, which is 2 readings, just to modify that. I have a concern. I heard you say that it would be a permitted activity and that the police would be issuing the permits. That, from an administrative standpoint, concerns me. So maybe we need to look at what some of the
City staff, perhaps.
I think that would be a part we need to get some input on, whether that's through planning yet, or I don't know that that's the appropriate.
In the original ordinance, it said the police, but that was because if someone were pulling into town and they were sleepy and they decided to park in the Civic Center parking lot, it was typically the police officer who came on them, and then he could issue them a permit.
Gotcha.
On that side. So
Okay.
This is a totally different thing. So I agree. I think that this should be part of yeah, it's a temporary land use permit type of thing. You know, it kind of falls in that same ballpark. So I think it should either be the planning department or the admin department that would.
Yeah. So that would just be my thoughts, but I look forward to seeing what discussion council has on it. Do you have anything that you see that we need to plan for on the next agenda in 2 weeks?
No, I don't see anything of timing.
Do you want to have the discussion though?
Discussion? Can we have
I
this?
would like to have the discussion on,
Ordinance 911.
Yeah.
it's ordinance 911, we're talking about a third amended.
So discussion of 9011 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll be amending the second.
We'll call that out on the, in the council spot for discussion then.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Council Chair Keys, who needs an asterisk.
Oh, because she's the chair.
Okay, I did mine differently, of course. Sorry that we have this meeting right before our council meeting, so I don't have like very eloquent notes and, but we had a great update from Mike Maples, the Public Works Department, on what's going on, and so I'll just hit a few of the highlights of what they've been working on. Stormwater, they're 46 days, contract days into the project. They've got a little over 1,000 feet of the storm main installed, and of the total of 6,100 feet. So what is that? 1/6 of the way. Everything's going smoothly.
Don't jinx it.
Let's see, the Wilson Brothers are not gonna be working on July 4th or 5th, and they'll try and get that tidied up for the traffic that's gonna be in town.
My understanding is there will be some limitations, like there's one block that's gonna be shut down.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
In front of Mike's house will be shut off.
Yeah, Platt Avenue from 11 to 10.
They're trying to get it over here.
When they're shut off, can people still park there?
No,
No.
no, all the equipment's parked on.
That will be,
That's where all their
there's gonna be,
Yeah.
there's gonna be a block or two that is shut off and inaccessible.
We're gonna try to keep it one block and put all their equipment in there and just condense it, so
Minimal impact.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we didn't make it, it's gonna be this block, but we fell short of the mark.
In wastewater, highlights there that they had a pump go out on June 15th at the North Lift Station that services the golf course. They were able to pull the pump out and replace it with the backup pump, which is now being repaired, and hopefully we'll get back soon because that old pump will now be the backup pump. Still working on the funding strategies for water for the 16-inch bypass and the 2023 water rehabilitation. Happy to report there have been no leaks in the water recently. Streets, they've been still working on pothole patching, grading alleys and roads, shooting for early August to do the FEMA paving project. And where is that gonna be again?
Where
Hagen.
flood damage was.
Okay. Yeah. EDA grant that was submitted at the end of May, we should have a decision by mid-July on that one. Positive feedback from the EDA. Hope to keep your fingers crossed on that one. Pools open and running, and lots and lots of swimmers. Arbor Day Foundation tree planting was a big success, and there's still 6 more trees to plant, and Mike's gonna finish up the budget and the final planting by the deadline of June 30th. So that's 5 days.
I was gonna include the trees in the update, that was one of them. Now you say 6 more trees to plant, are those 6 more trees to be claimed by the public?
No,
Or-
Spruce. But
They're
they were
big
all
ones.
equipped,
Oh, okay.
so he didn't wanna run over any kids. with
So I think we
equipment.
had no unclaimed trees when we were done, is that correct? That,
They all got out.
Like,
They
Were
all got out.
were they fighting over them? Did you have a line of people? Okay.
it wasn't fighting, but I will say it was an extremely well executed project. Thanks to Mike and his
Yeah,
team
that's
for
great.
how they
Well done.
approached that. When this first came out and they were talking about wanting to plant, 42 trees all in one day, there was scoffing
A
and
lot more than that, too.
and it was done the holes were all dug in advance in a nice, safe and
controversy.
there were little orange trees in the middle of it until they got it done for safety reasons, but it was, I've heard nothing but positive comments on the improvements, as well as how it was executed. And the feedback, well, secondhand, from the Arbor Day Foundation is that they were very impressed. That was my main concern, is the people who gave us the money, are they happy? And they indicated that they were absolutely happy.
There's a lot of good buzz in town about it.
Yeah.
So, well done.
So,
And the last thing that Mike reported on was that, two, applications have been submitted for solar projects one at the Public Workshop and one at the Recycling Center. Those are off, they'll be off tomorrow.
For the interconnection.
The interconnection small generator application. If anybody's watching. And then, did you have anything else to add that I missed? Okay. We also talked about the Safe Schools program and looking at getting, there's no sidewalks on Fifth Street and Second Street that go to the schools, and so there is funding that is available to, potentially get sidewalks, curb and gutter, to the schools on those two streets. And, Mike's gonna put together a cost for that and then talk with, Great West Engineering to see what it would look like to apply for those grants. Billings got a $3.65 million Safe Streets grant, so.
Cool.
That's potential, we'll keep you posted on that. Chelsea talked about the recycling center, and we will do a, actual versus budget. I hope by next meeting, we can present that. And that's,
so I'm gonna put that for the next meeting with the question mark in front of it to
Yeah.
check with you first, but
Thank you.
basically the recycling review and report.
I think it's gonna just depend on if we've gotten all the bills in
Yeah,
yet.
we
So-
might just do it at the Public Works meeting and then go over and see what we're missing, and then
Yep.
the following meeting, present it to the council,
Okay,
I think would be better.
okay.
Agreed.
Can you think of anything that you'll wanna make sure we call out during the other council business portion of the main agenda at this time?
I think so.
Okay. And you're allowed to change
And I'm
mine, we
not
don't
done
put
yet.
that together till Friday. Oh, okay.
A little more, there's so much more.
There's
But
more,
wait.
but wait, there's more. We also talked about, a potential sidewalk assessment to the business owners as part of that, upgrade for the sidewalks. There's 63 businesses affected from between 10th and 14th Streets on both sides of the street. And, Mike's put together a plan that part of that will come from water, part of it will come from streets. And we're looking at, having part of the cost also come from the businesses, or potentially from the resort tax. So, still working on that, but
May,
haven't come to any,
I would like to offer some input.
okay?
And ultimately, I welcome direction from council. I can see the wisdom in having, the businesses contribute to that. The main factor that is allowing us to do this is that the identified area is actually failed sidewalks as a result of the city project, which means we can go in and fix it. That's important because whatever we do needs to be scalable. I feel fairly comfortable that we're not gonna have an onslaught of hundreds of people calling up and saying, look, you ruined the sidewalk in front of my house when you added the water main, because this was a post-op operation on Broadway. But the having businesses contribute to it is important. My only hesitation is, the only way you're gonna get 100% buy-in or buy-off is if council passes an ordinance and dictates it and say you will, or we'll put it on your taxes. And that is going to add at a minimum 3 or 4 months, which means it doesn't happen this year. And I think, we're looking at right now, the ability of having that done this season, which is good. There was another suggestion that came forth about just going in and offering folks, to pay, you know, a minimal, I think $300 is the price that I heard around. We'll come in and cover the cost if you'll chip in $300, which is kind of what they did when they did the water lines. They're out doing the water lines, and the people doing the water main said, we'll replace from the water stop in for $800, as opposed to the, you know, $5,000 or $10,000 would cost if they were doing it as standalone. My question with that approach, which I liked, but what do we do for those businesses that either empty or don't comply, or how do we do it? And so just please take that in, those considerations into how you're doing it. And with council's blessing, I'm still gonna be moving forward with getting it done, unless you guys say, stop, we wanna figure out but I'd like to get that as one of the things on the checked off list. So anyway, that's just my input.
So do you want to add it as a discussion for council next time, so we can discuss how to pay for that part of it?
Can the gas tax be used for this?
So from a funding standpoint, I don't think there's a need to do it from the gas tax. The reason it's coming from water and street was those were the impacted budgets. There was a proposal, the reason the resort tax was brought into it, aside from it's a directly impacted thing, is one of the proposals was the businesses voluntarily got on board with giving up their 5% of resort tax this last time around. And so we actually are collecting an additional 5% of resort tax that just a few years ago went to the businesses instead. And one of their feedbacks was use that resort tax, rather than coming to me for $300, use the admin fee that we gave back to you and use that to pay for that. So.
And it is an eligible resort tax expense.
So we did talk
And
about
it
it
has
at the
been
last
reviewed.
resort tax meeting, and I think everybody was pretty amenable to that. So we do have options.
Okay, so we will discuss sidewalk funding, as a discussion item on the agenda for next week.
Okay. And then the last thing we talked about was, a Northwest Energy grant for solar panels to power the EV chargers at the Arts Guild. And so there's a couple pickups that we're looking at, working out. Mike's gonna, look at maybe combining some meters that will potentially allow, some different mounting versus, ground mounting, potentially do it on the bathroom roof.
Can you do it connecting to the library solar array?
No, it'd be more like kind of tight.
Then you have to go across.
Bathroom and the,
Yeah.
and the state panels on the bathroom and not have standing out there in the park.
And this would go to, supply power to the EV chargers.
Right.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and have that be on the standing committee meeting, because that will allow for a more open discussion from the public and allow them to interact and put
Yeah,
those
there's a lot of
ideas in.
unknowns at this point, so.
Yeah.
So that's it. Anybody have questions?
Thank you.
I will say that, Alan, just so you know, I did provide, oh, he's gone. Never mind. Regardless, he did provide a lot of information about that grant. It's actually 2 different grants. So he gave a pretty good breakdown of what that looks like and what the costs would be, because I told him that's really critical, that we need to know what those match amounts cost.
And, yeah, the timeline is not till November 1st.
Yeah.
first.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and again, if I had a little time in between meetings, I would have had this a little bit more
Totally. Yep.
polished, sorry.
I just wanted to do my part to say my thing.
Inconceivable. No. All right. Moving on to correspondence, other than Doug's email, is there any other correspondence?
I didn't mention.
Oh, please do.
Looked at the calendar, so since City Hall is closed the 4th and the 5th, agenda has to go out on the 3rd for the 9th meeting, so.
It's going to be a very short agenda.
Oh, oh, yeah.
Excellent, but the good news is we've already built it all out.
Yeah.
We already know
So,
what everything
but I
is.
just wanted to, because I got to look and.
Thank you for that.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
And I do
I know.
want something.
This is how our cycle works.
Dave, I did want some clarification. The planning board had a request to, give a member of the public the Red Lodge Growth Policy draft. And they discussed whether or not they should do that. because it wasn't created by the planning board, it was created by WWC, actually Great West.
Great West.
And I've had another request for
From
this.
council.
From
Yeah.
council.
I'm like,
So-
To provide this. Now, do we, if someone asks us for this draft, even though it's clearly a rough draft, do we provide it or do we not?
The answer is yes, we do. So if you've got a copy of it that's available, I would prefer that we scan it so that it, does every page on there say draft?
No.
I would prefer to figure out how either we have them resend that to us as a draft, but even though it is a draft, it is a public document that's available. And so, I think I'm aware of 2 individuals that have asked, and if there's a third, I believe the correct answer is we make that available. But I would like to have it marked as draft before we do so. So we can work, either with the vendor who provided that to us to request
Pretty
that they
easy.
add that
Just
to
add the
us.
watermark.
Or if we
Can
have it
you
as a
do
PDF, we could print it with we could just print it
Oh,
with
we have it in
with a
Word.
watermark on
Yeah,
it.
just add the watermark.
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, and could you just put it in the planning board as part of their packet? Because there's no real packet out there for tomorrow night's meeting. It'd be nice just to have it there.
Well, from a time frame, we can't, because again, they have the same lead time that we do as a
Oh.
public meeting.
Is there?
Yeah, if we can get a copy of that, and furthermore, if it's something that can be done rather simply, I think we can, I will override the bypass the need to do a FOIA request on that. It's public information,
Yeah,
it
you
should
can
be
upload the
available.
Watermark?
Yeah.
Yeah, just add the watermark on
So
Word doc.
can I actually
Yeah.
make a request on this as well? Can it actually be on our website? Because this is supposed to have a lot of public input. And I know if you put if you just put a time stamp
Stamp
next
on-
to it
yeah.
of when it was most recently
And put
updated.
draft.
And draft. I just think it's really important that the community members have access to this and have an
And-
ability to put in their input.
I agree, 100%.
There's part of me wants to say, I'd like to take it under consideration, but the second part of it is, I work at the direction of council, so if council would like me to direct to make sure that the draft copy is available,
I'll see if I can go ahead and watermark the whole thing and send it over to you.
Yeah, it should just be a click of a button and it should do it.
okay.
Yep.
Should, yeah.
I sense
don't
that
know
is
what-
council's desire, so I will work to make that
I
happen.
can help you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please do.
All right. Anything else? I didn't have anything to do between now and next Wednesday, so thank you.
So but the planning board meeting is tomorrow night and they're reviewing that.
I think the planning,
We're starting a review
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the
so-
draft that Great West wrote up.
the request came up last time, and planning board did not actually have the document yet.
Okay,
And
but
so
I'm
they
just
were-
saying, it's kind of time is of the essence.
Well, we
So-
still have a lot of public input.
Planning board has it.
Right.
No, this is nowhere near to being
Okay.
done. Is that the concern?
Yeah, I mean, they're
Oh.
going to start reviewing it tomorrow night. It'd be nice if the public could have a chance to look at it while they're going through it and reviewing it,
And-
instead of just listening to
And
them
the
talk about
invitation
it.
that was extended before is, it'll be up on the screen, and they can come to the meetings and have the same access that planning board has to it, but we will work on getting it expedited to get it out there.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was it. Making notes.
All right. Any other correspondence other than Doug's email that we need to be aware of? All right. At this point, I'm gonna open up public comment this is for anything within the city's purview that you would like to speak on. You'd, stand up and, identify yourself. Please be cognizant of the time and limit yourself to 3 minutes or less.
My name is Ben Bartow. I'm from Dubois, Wyoming, and I'm the Bone Daddy mascot for the Beartooth Rally. And I would like to thank you all for allowing me to speak here. My first rally was in 2001, and this is the jacket that Leo Wilson gave me when I first dressed as Bone Daddy 3 years ago. This will be my 24th consecutive year of the rally, and the 20th known as the Bone Daddy. You have seen myself and American Legion Riders, which also I'm a member of, drive up and down your streets carrying the Bone Daddy flag, American flag, and the POW flag. as well as in the rodeo arena. I have walked up and down your streets at night, bar hopping and entertaining rally patrons. I've spent hours greeting registering riders for the poker run on every Saturday. And I was truly honored to have the opportunity to ride on the Budweiser Clydesdale wagon and deliver beer to your bars. I have been blessed with thousands of requests for photos with rallyo enthusiasts, especially with children who either love or hate me. And as the mascot for the Iron Horse Rodeo for the last 20 years, I think I've served you well in promoting and building and helped building the best motorcycle rally in this country. I have loved this rally from day one and have made it to the 30th anniversary. And it is with regret that I must announce my retirement from the Iron Horse Rodeo at the end of this rally due to health reasons. Friends of mine, Wes Nelson and Pop's ashes lay in the rodeo arena, where I would also like someday to have some of mine there. In 2010, I was introduced to that character named Pops, who was an Army 82nd Airborne and also an American Legion rider. We became great friends, and ever since then, he has helped with the rodeo. After the 27th rally, rodeo, a group of us were scheduled for a late September bike ride when we got news Pops fell and hurt his hip, and he would have to follow us by vehicle. In the conversation, Pops asked when I was going to retire, and I mentioned the 30th anniversary was not far off, and I would like to make it to that one. He said he might try and stick it out. After returning home from that trip, Pop went out to find out what was wrong with his hip, and discovered a cancerous tumor ruptured, and he passed away 3 weeks later. From Montana, the color guard presented me with this flag where his ashes lay, and I would like the opportunity to honor Pops one more time for the last ride in the rodeo arena, for respect, honor, and dignity for the both of us. And because I'm retiring from the rodeo, that does not mean I will not stop, that I will stop promoting this rally, because I will always remain the true champion of this rally. There have been 3 rally owners, but only one Bone Daddy. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Wow. Did you have a stopwatch? Because that was like to the second. That was. Ben,
I'm working on it for days.
Ben, thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bone Daddy.
And I
I
hope to
move
see
to-
you at the rally.
I move to extend the
And
meeting
I
to
have
the
a-
end of,
an extra-
public comment.
There's a motion to extend the meeting as needed to allow for public comment.
One second, that.
I have a motion from Councilmember Conley, a second from Councilmember Keys. Can I get a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. All right.
I move.
Other comments from Ben, the one thing I was gonna ask or say, you had asked it for a request or an opportunity to pay the respect one more time. I'd just like to clarify that the city formally doesn't have a role in that, so I'm assuming you're reaching out and talking to the event organizer to do that.
If she'll respond.
Okay.
Okay.
If we can help play a role in there, let me know.
Well, I would appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for visiting the trip.
All right, any other public comment from the floor? Please state your name.
Dan Foreman, 219 South Hagen. I came here tonight to, see if there was an opening for the planning board. I'd be happy to accept it. But that's all right, we'll delay it. But while sitting here, I had the opportunity to see wonderful Jody here give her presentation on the library, and just wanted to say that my 2 little girls have the fondest memories of you. When you first started 19 years ago, and they just adored you, and they were either at the swimming pool or at the library with you, and you were a big influence on them. And now Belle's a music teacher with her 2nd master's degree under her belt, and Grace has just been accepted to Edinburgh University in Scotland to go get her doctorate. And my wife and I,
still?
Yeah, still writing. My wife and I consider you a real positive influence.
Oh.
And the Carnegie Library was a special place for them, for all. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for know you do.
Thank you for that positive feedback. I have a niece who's going to Edinburgh this year as well. We'll have to.
Are you related?
I don't think so.
Actually, she turned out Edinburgh 3 times, and actually she got accepted at the seminary there in, Edinburgh. They're just now accepting women, and she wants to get her doctorate in, theology or something, and along with all her other degrees, but, yeah, that's fun, we'll have
We'll
to,
see you for.
It's a small world.
we'll have to go visit them together, Dave.
Behave yourself no matter where you are on this globe. You never know who you're gonna run into. Any other public comment from the chamber? Dan, thank you for coming tonight, and, we look forward to seeing you next time as well. Any comments from anyone online? Going twice? 3 times? We'll close public comment. I'll entertain a motion for agenda number 12.
I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you all for your patience. Jody, thank you again.
You're welcome. I emailed you and Lonnie the PDF of the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So
Do you-
let me know if you want.
Yes, please.